All right, next, our candidates for Lieutenant Governor, who are David Clark, Greg Dolezal, and Blake Tillery. We're going to give you, again, 1 minute opening statements, and we're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Representative David Clark, your opening statement.
It is an honor to be with you all today. David Clark, born and raised here in Georgia, one of 10 children, grew up on a small farm. I'm a business leader, Libre, combat veteran, 13 years in the military. I've served now 12 years in the House. The two greatest things are being a husband to my wife, Courtney, and we have 3 children, Madison, Miles, and Maverick, 7, 3, and 1. And there are 7 people in the race, but I'm the only battle-tested candidate running in this race, whether in defense of my nation or overseas in combat. Number 2, taking on the left for radical ideology. But third, which is just as important, if you want to stand up to members of your own party, we not want to do the right thing. I've done that. You can Google me, ChatGPT me. I've given up chairmanships, committees to be a voice where there's no voice. I'm honored to be here with you all the time.
All right, thank you. Next is Senator Dolezal.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Thahong, and thank you to the Cobb County Republican Women for having us. My name is Greg Dolezal. I am a father of 4 kids between the ages of, as of last week, 14 and 7. My wife Natalie and I have been married for 18 years. I'm a small business owner over in Forsyth County. I've owned a technology company for the last 20 years or so. We employ, as of this morning, actually, about 80 folks. And I've been in the state Senate since 2019. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because I believe that we're in a fight to save America. Our wonderful country turns 250 years old this year. But I'm not convinced that we're going to make it to 350, or if we do make it to 350, what we're going to look like. I look at the election of Zora Mandani in New York, and I fear that that could be the future for many cities and many states around America. So I'm running to return this country to our founding principles to the best of my ability. Thank you all so much.
All right, and next is Senator Tillery.
Well, Cobb County Women, thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm Blake Tillery. I'm from down in Vidalia, South Georgia. And how I got started in politics, I got elected when I helped some Republicans run for office, and first time I elected Republican County Commission, and they raised the property taxes. And I kind of looked at them, was like, I thought Republicans acted differently. So I ran, and I won. And what I found out is we were able to drop property taxes for 4 years in a row. We didn't have a revenue problem, we had a spending problem. And once we addressed it, we were able to lower taxes for everyone. Listen, in this race, I think a few things are important. You got to be able to listen to folks. We're focused on protecting Georgia values, Georgia families, and Georgia pocketbooks. People are telling us they don't want to live under Sharia law. They don't want health care mandates. They're telling us they want school choice. Why are we not listening to them? Last but not least, they're telling them the gas, groceries, and childcare are too high. Let's help them where we can. I think I have a plan that does that. Thank you for letting me be here today to share a little bit of the week.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with the questions, and I'll go ahead and say the questions, and then I will call on each one of you guys to answer. And again, you guys are going to have 1 minute for your response. You'll be notified for 30 seconds, and a bell will ring when you must stop talking. So the first question, with recent debates surrounding healthcare policies, specifically Medicaid expansion, what is your approach to improving affordability in Georgia? And how do you view the role of healthcare providers versus government intervention in healthcare? And we'll start with Senator Dolezal.
Thank you for the question. I remember the very first time that we offered insurance to our employees was right around the same time that Obamacare, otherwise known as the Affordable Care Act, became a thing. And like most government programs, the Affordable Care Act has done the opposite of what its title says. And in our company, we've had double-digit insurance rate increases year over year, every single year. Now, when I read the Constitution, I don't see anywhere in the Constitution where it talks about government health care. I don't believe that I should be forced to purchase insurance that provides care and coverage that I may not need. I believe that we need to allow the free market to work, allow people to have choices and options. And as it relates specifically to Georgia, we have an anti-innovation policy here in Georgia called Certificate of Need. I've done work in the past to try to repeal that, to allow innovators to open up new healthcare opportunities for for patients. And I think we can continue with the needle on that.
All right, Senator Tiller.
Oh, well, thanks for this question. I guess when I gave my opening, I did tell you we got 3 little boys at our house, a foster child and 2 little ones, but the best part of our whole family is my wife. She's an OBGYN. I literally live with this medical issue. And what are they telling us? They're saying that they don't get to practice medicine because they're spending 60% of their time negotiating an insurance contract that then sends them a letter 2 months later and says, hey, we're cutting your premiums by, or cutting your payments by 20%. How's that fair? Insurance, we know why it existed back in the 1940s when we had wage freezes that was instituted after World War II. But that time's gone. We need to be able for patients to negotiate directly with providers. That's how we're going to have the cheapest care. Greg hit on a topic that he and I actually agree on. You're not going to see us all disagree the entire time up here tonight. Why would we prohibit someone who wants to open a cancer center from opening it? Those are certain patients that are Georgians. Certificate of need is out with Say It's welcome. It's time for it to go. Let's let the private market help us solve this Medicaid in this healthcare process.
All right, your representative.
So I'll say, I mean, you just look at the VA, again, a veteran, the VA, arm of the government, it's absolutely terrible. And it's not doing what it needs to do. So I'm all about repealing the certificate of need and having free market capitalism instead of more government getting involved. And anytime government gets involved, they always create a problem.
All right, thank you. Next question. What is your approach to ensuring that immigration laws are enforced effectively in Georgia, including cooperation with federal agencies in addressing sanctuary city policies? We'll start with you, Blake Tillery.
Sue, you know this better than anyone because you were in the House when I carried Senate Bill 21. What I saw is that Georgia has about 9 or 10 very, very strong illegal immigration laws. We say that our sheriff's departments have to participate with the 287G program. We had a problem in this county for a little bit with Sheriff Owens on that. What did we do? We withheld a little bit of funding that was related to his jail, and amazingly, he decided that he was going to participate in the 287G program again. Use the tools you have access to. I introduced Senate Bill 21 because what I saw was that when cities and counties don't follow Georgia immigration law, our laws aren't worth the paper that they're written on. We don't need a 10th law that they can ignore too. We need to hold cities and counties financially responsible when they don't follow Georgia immigration law. Case in point, Athens, Clark County, Lincoln Riley's family ought to be able to sue Athens because they weren't following Georgia immigration law and their family got murdered. The cool thing about it is when that happens one time, the other 158 counties, you ain't going to have to sue them. You know why? They're going to fall in line.
All right, David Clark.
So I'll say, I mean, I think we should round up every single illegal here in America because you jump to the front of the line and also as a Green Beret, you know, it's national security. And when you don't know who's here, it's a threat to our communities and all that. And so, I mean, there's 10,000 Chinese illegal military age men who came here in the 4 years of Biden. And we don't know why they came here. Are they trained by the communist China? If we went to war tomorrow, and we don't know who they are, that's a problem inside our country, especially coming from the viewpoint of the Green Beret, who knows it could be a major tragedy here in the United States. So I support round them up, send them back, and letting you do it the right way.
And Greg Dole as well.
Thank you. I agree with everything that both of these guys said. That was well said. I'll just add one thing to add some color to that a little bit. Back in the 1920s, America went through a period where we paused our immigration system completely. I think that's where we are today. I believe that we have some of the most insane immigration policies in the entire country. We are importing people here from countries that hate America, that have openly declared jihad against America. We saw a gentleman, I mean, I can call him a gentleman. We saw a human being by the name of Muhammad Jallo gun down Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw at Holt Dominion University about 3 years ago. He was someone who became a naturalized citizen who was arrested for providing material support to ISIS. He was let out of our prison system after only having served 8.5 years. He then walked into an ROTC classroom full of students and shot Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw. We not only need to reform our immigration system, we need to reform our criminal justice system. So if we do see immigrants that are here illegally breaking our crimes, we deport them back to their country.
All right, and before the panel, I had talked about traffic, and I travel back and forth from Cobb and Gwinnett all the time. So the next question has to do with infrastructure. So what are your priorities for infrastructure development and maintenance, including but not limited to roads, bridges, public transportation, broadband access in Georgia? And do you plan to fund and prioritize these projects? We'll start with Senator Tillery.
This is Mr. Clark's turn if you'll stay.
It's not. We have certain go another way, but if
Sorry, David, I tried to help you out
want-
there. I'll be kind of talk, my friend. I know, my time didn't start yet. Let's talk about what we've done. Let's talk about what I've done. I chaired the Appropriations Committee for the past 7 years. This year, we put $2 billion into transportation. Why? Because we saw bottlenecks that we needed to serve. We didn't stop there, though. We spend over $2 billion a year on transportation on our interstate corridors. And this year, we came back for the third consecutive year and doubled the LMIG program. That's the Local Maintenance and Improvement Program. What does that do? It lets your county commissioners decide what projects are the bottlenecks in Cobb County that matter the most. We're going to continue to put money there. You know why? Because we have a $37 billion state budget. Of that $37 billion, where are our two top priorities? Education gets 54%, healthcare gets 23%. Where's transportation? 7%. I want to see those numbers flipped.
All right, Representative Clark.
So I'm not against development, but you can't develop it. You don't have the infrastructure, the roads, and all that. Because that's how we have the traffic we have. Is you need the right leaders to look at towards the future, generations ahead, and making sure that we put the right investments in there. Because you can go look to other states like Louisiana, and they have horrendous infrastructure and roads and highways. And when that happens, you don't bring business, and your states come here and flourish. And you need to make sure you're wisely investing, but also always looking at waste product abuse and saving the taxpayer dollars. But you need great roads and bridges.
Right, and Senator Dolittle.
So this is a trick question, but how much of your your income taxes do you think go towards building roads and bridges in the state of Georgia? All that money you pay in income taxes. It's a trick question because the answer is zero. The only state funds that we allocate towards building roads and bridges is the gasoline tax, which we keep suspending, by the way, and then backfill it. I believe that we need to allocate some general fund money. I think that we need to take things like the marketplace facilitator tax or things like the sales tax on transportation items and dedicate those to transportation. Why? Because of rising mileage cafe standards, we're seeing that $2.2 billion that we spend on roads gets relatively flatlined, and it's buying about half the mileage of road that it was buying before COVID. The money that Blake talked about, we were able to do that through our surplus. We're eventually going to run out of surplus because what is the surplus? It's just money that we overtaxed you on in the first place. And as we lower the income tax and eliminate it, we're not going to have that surplus money to play with. So we've got to get a long-term plan on infrastructure.
All right, thank you. All right, let's talk about taxes. With affordability being the common theme among voters, what measures would you undertake as a priority for taxes? Property tax, income tax, or sales tax for Georgians in your administration? And we'll start with you, Representative Clark.
So I said the number one, property tax. Travel in this state, you can pay off your house for you forever renting from the government, and you could lose your house. So I think property tax is the biggest one. And affordability matters. In 2028, the majority of the vote will be millennials and Gen Z. And if they can't afford to raise a family, put a roof over their kids at night, then they're going to be pulled to go towards a Mom Donnie type candidates. And so we need to stop just talking that we have to back it up with action. We have to follow through. And it's not big with government. It's smaller government, but being wise with the taxpayer dollars. But cutting taxes, cutting regulations. The property tax is the number one thing I believe we need to cut.
All right, Senator Dolittle.
It's not an either or. The state doesn't get any property tax, and the local counties and school boards don't get any of your income tax other than what we appropriate out to them. So I believe that we need to do both, and I think that we can do both at the same time. Georgia has the highest income tax in the Southeast. We're more to the north and south by 2 states that are at zero. We had to amend the Georgia Constitution in 1913 to even allow government to come into your paycheck and take money before you got it. Georgia did not have an income tax until 1929. I believe that income taxes are un-American. Perhaps even more un-American or even more insidious than that, though, is property taxes. The taxation of unrealized gain on your personal home is just disgusting. And it is causing young people not to afford to buy a home, like David mentioned. It's also preventing older people from being able to stay in their homes. And I'll say this on property taxes. When you turn 65 years old, it's not your job to pay for my kids to go to public school. The school portion of your property taxes should go away. We've done that in Forsyth County, and we still have some of the best schools in the state.
All right, Senator Tillery.
things that Greg hit on. Let's go back to those. On the income tax, remember, that's collected by the state. The property tax goes solely to your counties, your schools, and your cities. Issues with property tax need to be handled by the cities, the counties, and the schools. And I do think they're too high. The best way we could resolve those, though, is a floating homestead exemption. It's what we passed in Vice County Commission in our county. What that said is it locked the value of your home at the year you purchased it, and it could not go any higher. You were assessed on that value until you sold it or made an improvement. I think it's something that folks on fixed incomes can see, and once that they see that, they know that they are they're able to have consistency. I'm sorry, Johnny, I saw you. I got my mic closer now. I apologize. On the income tax, y'all, we can eliminate it. 9 states have already done it. Georgia can do it too. Tennessee's at 0, Florida's at 0, North Carolina, South Carolina are at 2.99. We've cut Georgia's income tax by 33% since the year 2020. We're on our way. But how do you make it be 0? We give out $30 billion in corporate credits each year. We only collect $16 billion on income tax. If you care more about people than you do corporate profits, you can make the income tax be 0 too. And y'all, I am there.
All right. Next question is a question that we always hear when we are applying for a job. What skills and qualification do you possess that make you the best candidate for this office? And we'll start with you, Senator Dolezal.
All right. Well, most people think that the primary job of lieutenant governor is to shake the governor's hand and see if it's still warm. And that is something I think the lieutenant governor probably does. Some of y'all get that on the way home. Or some of you wives, I've explained that to your husbands on the way home. But the day-to-day function of lieutenant governor is to preside over the Georgia State Senate. That's 56 people that have different opinions, different goals, and different priorities. My most recent job, other than my business before I came into the lieutenant governor's role, was I was the tour manager for Chris Tomlin for a decade. And I had to lead a team of men and women on the road. There was about 50 people. And up until a couple of years ago, as our company started to grow a little bit, we were about 45 people. I've got opportunity leading organizations that are essentially the exact same size as the Georgia State Senate. And I think that my business background will allow me to help lead that chamber well and towards the principles that we all have.
All right. Senator Tillery.
What
What skills and qualifications do you possess that make you the best candidate for this office?
Well, when we got in this race, one of the things I did is I wanted to make sure that use the background that I had from being in chairman of appropriations. That's not a seat that you run for lieutenant governor from. Do you know why? Because 9 out of 10 conversations I have, some of you sitting in the room, we've had them, I have to tell you that's a great idea you brought, but it's not a proper role for government, and we're not going to spend money on it. 9 out of 10 conversations I have to tell someone no. One of the strongest things you got to be able to do in government, say no. It's so much easier to say yes. You got to be willing to say no. That's why we've also been able to get so many endorsements from our friends, because when I told them no, I've been honest with them. We've been able to get over 350 endorsements from county commissioners, city councilmen, county clerks, sheriffs across the state, over 70 sheriffs. Why? Because they've told you, and they'll say in their videos, I don't always like what Blake tells me, but he's always honest when he does. I want to take that to the bank. I think that's the best quality I can have as a lieutenant.
All right, Representative Clark.
So I was like, do be a great legislative, but be a terrible commander. As the lieutenant governor, you're the one who holds the line, gets special interest, cash no vision, agenda for the Senate. And you should be the first off the chopper, last on the chopper, be willing to take the hits, for the senators that they carry big, bold legislation. And as a Green Beret, we all learn the same language. We study the world, the cultures. I can work with anybody and everybody, but then also, being able to be battle tested, hold the line, and I've done that. I've given up chairmanship, given up committees, and that's what you want as a lieutenant governor. The one, when you lay your head down at night, your head in a pillow, who's in take a bullet for you and your families, do the right thing, nobody's looking. And I believe I've shown that in my life, whether in uniform or in a super tie at the Capitol.
Thank you. I know y'all are having a great time, but this is going to be the last question. Crime continues to be an issue, particularly in the more populated areas of the state, and Governor Kemp had prioritized public safety and used resources in Atlanta during his term. Is there more that the next governor can do to curb crime in our cities? We'll start with you, Representative Clark.
Yeah, I would say I'm just as a lieutenant governor is making sure that law enforcement knows that you have their back. You make sure they have the resources, the training, you stand next to them because you need to be hard on crime. And some need to be locked up for life. So that's a big thing. Just back them up. I believe in second chances, but also you need to be tough because you want a safe community. You want your kids to be able to grow up, be able to go out, ride their bikes, play in the neighborhoods. And just make sure that the law enforcement has the resources and the training and letting them knowing that you have their back no matter what. I can tell you as a Green Beret combat vet, I'll kick in the door if they need one as the lieutenant governor. And actually this week I'll be going to go be a part of a operation, be deputized as a sheriff deputy and go round lips of criminals. And I know what I'm doing if something breaks out, but I'll be the being spot of law enforcement.
All right, Senator Dolezal.
Thank you. About 20 years ago, Republicans led on something that I think actually was not the best policy to lead on. That was what they at the time called criminal justice reform. And the idea was essentially get rid of mandatory minimum sentences, reduce people's time in prison. And the thought was if you get them back out in society, you would reduce recidivism rate. Well, the exact opposite has happened. By not having mandatory minimums, we see catch and release with road judges and road DAs, where people break the law, they're let back out in the streets. We saw that here in Atlanta during the mostly peaceful protests of 2020. And we need to go back to mandatory minimums because we cannot trust all of these judges, especially the Soros judges, to enforce law and order in the state. And I will say this, the last thing that we need to do to ensure that we have law and order in the state is to ensure that who I call Keisha No Chase Bottoms, who put the no chase order on Atlanta police during the peaceful protests of 2020, never sees public office because she allowed the city to burn. She allowed the autonomous zone to be set up at the Wendy's. She allowed for the death of the 8-year-old Sequoia Turner. And we cannot allow people like that to occupy the governor's mansion and be the top law enforcement, oversee top law enforcement in the state.
It's almost not a fair question to me. The reason why we've been able to be endorsed by over 78 sheriffs is because they think that I'm the best candidate for law and order and for public safety. A former sheriff here, Neil Warren, he's endorsed our campaign. Why? Because he saw how I worked as a senator. Because he saw how I stood and supported law enforcement. There's one thing though I think we sort of dropped the ball on, and it's mental health. And that's why this year I'm really, really proud. Both of these guys voted for it too. Appreciate that. We were able to build the state's first mental health hospital in over 60 years. Why does that matter? Because a lot of the folks that you're seeing living in tent cities right now, they really need to be in a state mental health hospital. The sheriffs told us their jails are getting overrun and they are becoming our mental health clinics. That's not good for mental health, and it's darn sure not good for public safety. We answered the call within 1 week of being allowed by a federal judge to resolve that issue, and I want to thank my colleagues for voting to put that $409 million in so that we can begin to remedy this issue once and for all. Public safety and mental health are hand in hand.
Y'all did such a good job as far as timing wise. So yeah, I'm surprised that every day of them to go over. So I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to give us just a closing statement, and we'll start with you, Senator Tillery, and go down the road.
Thank you so much again for allowing us to be here this evening. We get to travel around the state. It's really not fair for you. You get to hear us answer 1 minute clips, and then you've got to make a pick on who you think should be the second person in charge of this state. That's not fair. Hopefully we've offered you more. That's why we've reached into your community and tried to grab endorsements. Like that of former Sheriff Neil Warren, like Senator Lindsey Tippett, like Sue Everhart, or Congressmen Bob Barr, Phil Gingrey, Tom Price. They've endorsed our campaign, not because I don't say that bragging. I say that because I hope it's the way that we have lived and the way that I have served. So those folks are folks that you feel comfortable with and the way they served you. I hope that gives you a little bit more than just the 60-second answer for why I think I should be your next lieutenant governor. The other thing is this: I'm going to be your employee if I win. So jot down this number. I've had all my employees' cell phone numbers. It's 912-245-9915. If I'm lucky enough to win this job interview here, I'm your employee. You need to be able to reach me when the time comes. Thank you.
I want to echo the thanks for y'all, first of all, for caring enough to be here, and Representative Holland for you moderating this conversation here. Y'all, we've had pretty good luck the last 5 years with a 4-year window having a business guy who did not endeavor to be in politics come over and help lead our country. And I certainly haven't had the business success of Donald Trump, but I've had my fair share. But I, like President Trump, never endeavored to get into politics. I did it well into my career And I did it because of what I talked about at the start of tonight. I feel that we're not only in a fight to save America, but I believe that we're in a fight to save Western civilization. But I believe that we save Western civilization by saving America. And providentially, I think that we save America by saving Georgia. And I think that we save Georgia by saving the American dream. We have to cause the next generation to fall in love with America again. And that's what I hope to do as Lieutenant Governor.
So I just want to say thank you all for having me here today. I can just tell you this. I'd love to hear your vote come May 19th. And if you vote for me, I'll be the most upfront, transparent, statewide elected official you've ever had. And why I can make that promise is two things. By faith in God and my time overseas in combat, I know tomorrow's not promised. But one day I'll stand before God. He's not going to judge me exactly for what I do in public. It's what I do behind closed doors. The words I say, the actions I take. And you can hear a lot of people are talking tough, like I'm battle-tested warrior. I'm a fighter. As the saying goes, everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster things. I've done that. I've given up chairmanship, given up committees to do the right thing. I don't live for a title, and I know how to lead day one. I've served the highest levels in the military. I've served in business. I've served in politics, and I'd love during the vote come May 19th. And God bless all of you.
Well, thank you, you three. We have Blake Tillery, Greg Dolezal, and David Clark. They're all ready to be your next Lieutenant Governor. Let's give them a round of applause.